Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I'm Michael Pinter. I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So today's topic is, can you wholesale auction properties? So it's a little complicated, and if you stick around to the end, I can tell you a couple of tips on a few ways that you can get some advice on how to do that. But ironically, I think the first deal I ever wholesaled was an auction property. So for those of you who don't know, for 4 years, the first 4 years I did this full time, I really bought almost all my properties at the live auctions in Nassau County, New York. I went every Tuesday for 4 years. I also bought some on online auctions like Hubzu, Xome, that's Xome, and auction.com. But really, every Monday was looking at properties that were going to be out for the auction, and Tuesday was, the whole day was pretty much spent at the auction. It didn't end till 3 p.m. And I bought a property once in, where was it? I think it was in Lynbrook. And it was in much better shape than you would think, right? It was anything going to auction is something that's been foreclosed on. This property had a lot of potential. It just needed to be cleaned out. So I got access to it. I think the door was open in the back, which is not always the case. And I realized, hey, if I can just clean this out and show people access, I can sell it. And I ended up, I call it wholesale because I just assigned the bid from a contract, but it was actually to an end user buyer. I don't even know if it was to an investor. So a little different, but it was a cash buyer, and I found one, which is unlikely if you're thinking about doing that. If you're finding a direct-to-seller deal that's not really livable, it's very rare you're going to find a cash end user. You're going to most likely going to have a cash buyer who's an investor who wants to fix and flip it. But it worked. Now, if you're buying at a live auction, it really depends on your area. So in Nassau County, where I am, you get a bid and you can easily just assign the bid. So I guess that's wholesaling it. That is an easy thing to do. You literally call the plaintiff's attorney and say, I want to assign the bid to this guy, and that's fine. They could not care less. As long as as long as you close when you're supposed to close, you're fine. As long as somebody closes. If it's an online auction, it's a lot more complicated because a lot of the online auction paperwork specifically says you cannot assign it. Now, there is a sort of way around that. So what you can do is you can buy it in a new LLC. So you're buying 123 Main Street. You open up 123 Main Street LLC. And I've done a few videos on how easy that is to do in New York. It takes 5 minutes and costs $200. You don't have to pay an attorney to do it or anything like that. So you open up this LLC and then you sell the interest in the LLC. So I have done that. But it's not so easy, and you have to be very careful. And you got to make sure you're doing it to somebody who's their attorney understands what you're doing. In general, I sell interest in LLCs anytime a property is unassignable, if I want to assign it. But you got to be aware of the assignee, that's the person you're assigning to's concerns, right? They're always concerned when you sell them the interest in an LLC that the LLC somehow has baggage, right? It's got some kind of litigation pending, and they're going to get caught holding it. The way to avoid those things is to create the LLC really late in the game. So I'll create an LLC sometimes a week before closing. And also, when you create an LLC, you have to get a tax ID number, an EIN number. Do not get that tax ID number if you're assigning if you're selling the interest in LLC. Allow the person that you're assigning to do the EIN number themselves. Because whenever you get a tax ID number, you have to put a social security number in it. If you get it and then assign, it becomes complicated. So that's a piece of advice. But so in theory, you can wholesale auction properties, but you've got to understand, like every deal in New York, right? And people don't tell you this on the internet, you have no outs, right? There's no contingency period in New York, inspection contingency period. Inspections get done before the contract. So every deal, whether it's at an auction or whether it's an online auction, you have to either assign that or close. You must. So when you get into that, and one of the things is that at the live auction, at least in Nassau, and I think it works this way in most counties, you have to give us cashier's check for at least 10%. They're not giving you that money back if you change your mind. So you need to be sure that you're going to either assign or close, which the truth is a good practice for you for every deal in New York, because no seller is letting you out of a contract unless there's a title problem. Like he can't deliver free title, clear title. So you need to be ready to either assign it, to wholesale it, or to close on it and do whatever you want with it. Keep it, fix it, live in it, wherever you're doing. But every contract I go into, I go in hard. That means I have to either assign or I have to close. There are no other options. And it's the same way with an auction property. So auctions are interesting. Like I said, I spent every Tuesday for 4 years going to them. And it's an interesting place because the guys there are pretty adept at buying occupied properties, because most of the properties are going to be occupied either by a tenant or by the previous owner. They're pretty adept at evaluating what a property is without getting inside of it, because very often you don't have access to it. So those guys have special talents. So just a funny story, I took really, really good notes over those 4 years. I had an incredibly good list of, I thought it was an incredibly good list of buyers when I started 5 years ago when I started wholesaling. I figured I could wholesale to these guys, but these guys would not buy properties from me. I don't know why. Maybe they saw me buy enough and they figured that if I was trying to sell it, that something was wrong with it. I don't know what went on through their minds. I have sold a few to a few people I met there, but very, very rare. So you got to be aware of what's going on there, because in general, those guys are very, very astute. And the scariest time of my life was when I was the only bidder on a property and I walked up there alone. And I figured I may be missing something. And occasionally some guy would whisper something like, that's a second lien, be careful with this one. And I just walk away. I'd say, I'm sorry, I changed my mind. That happens too. So can you wholesale? You can. But if you're going to go to an auction, you should go to a few auctions before you put in a bid. You want to learn who the real players are, talk to guys and see if you can get information from them, learn a little bit about what they're doing and how they're figuring this out, because most of the people who go to auctions regularly are really good. Like after a couple of years, I was really good at knowing what was a deal and what wasn't a deal. And I felt bad when I saw somebody newbie come and buy something and get slaughtered because the price he paid was way too high. Again, but sometimes that could have been wrong, right? Sometimes that newbie will come in and he'll make money and no one else will. But you can wholesale auction properties, but you have to check with whatever county or city is selling you the properties if you have the ability to assign the bid. That means once you go in, you make a bid, sorry, you're the winning bidder, you give your 10% deposit. Another thing, in my county, you have like 30 days to close. Sometimes more if the paperwork takes time. And I know there are other places where you have to pay in full by the next day. I think in Florida, that's the way it works. So if that's the case, if you have to close by the next day, you're probably not going to be able to assign the bid in a day. It's just too quick. So the question you want to ask if you're in a place where there's auctions, whatever county you're in, is A, how much time do I have? How much money do I have to give the deposit? It's usually 10%. Sorry. And then how long do I have to close? That's a really important question. Now, if you're interested in learning how I do this or how I get deals in general, you can go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. All the questions you have about coaching are answered. I get people who say, I didn't go to the website. I want to ask you. I created the website really to answer all your questions. How much it costs, what you get, why you might want it or why you might not want it. Go to the website and you'll figure it out. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, please click like. The like really helped me out and I appreciate it. And if you have any comment or any question, please put it in the comments. I answer all comments. There are no bad questions. If it's a simple answer, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's a topic that I covered, I will send you links to the videos on it. And if it's something that I feel like I haven't covered in a while or something new, I'll be happy to do a video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching. I really, really appreciate it.